Okay, we'll go up, Mr. Clerk, to the last resolution, Resolution 50-15.
Resolution 50-15 amends the rules of procedure and organization of the Council of the County of Hawaii by amending Rule Number 2, Meetings. Amends Council Rule 2 by decreasing the number of votes required to allow a committee or council meeting to go beyond 6 p.m., requiring the council's prior approval for any request of a presentation not related to a pending bill or resolution, and requiring equal time be allowed for and against the subject matter of any presentation relating to a pending bill or resolution. Introduced by Ms. Willie, there's a pending motion on the floor to approve this resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Ms. Willie, you have the floor.
Okay. Yes. Let me just say, in terms of this rule, as the others, and largely I feel that it's an issue that we should get settled. There are pros and cons of both positions. It's not like I'm here necessarily saying that I'm weighing in one way or another, but I feel that we ought to get these things straight. And I also want to say the whole, the first part of this is about whether we meet until after 6, and whether we stop at 6 p.m. And somehow, if you all remember that debacle at the beginning where suddenly there was we had an amended version of the rules, and Councilmember Iligan came to the rescue and said, "What's this?" And somehow the provision saying that we stop at 6 and having a two-thirds majority was in the final draft when we thought we were correcting it and going back to the one last year. So I was trying to figure out how to get that before the council and not just chit-chat and break the sunshine law. So I thought, well, if I so I made an amendment changing it from two-thirds vote to majority, basically because I want this issue to be looked at, and that we really never voted that in, you know. So so what it has, our current version, even though we didn't know we were voting it in, says that we shall conclude by 6 p.m. absent a two-thirds vote. Now we can, so I just changed it to a majority vote because only 5 people would be a quorum, or we basically get rid of it and just say we're going to go like we did last night, and that's it. So again, I just want the issue, let's get it clear. I don't like things having been voted on by the council when we don't know we're doing it. And then D had to do with presentations, and if you recall, there was when I was trying to show Racing to Zero, and you know, what are we doing and how much time it takes, and again, this is an issue I thought that we ought to resolve and figure out while we handled it. So the way I wrote it up for discussion, starting point was any request where it's not related to a pending bill should be approved in advance by the council. Right now, pretty much we leave it to our own discretion and honor what each one's saying and assume that there isn't, that folks aren't abusing it, and it also comes up, you can vote it off. I mean, we did not see the Racing to Zero. And the second part of that is where there is a bill pending or a resolution. Someone wants to put, should we allow any kind of presentations, or should it just be part of the testimony? Or if there's something controversial and each one of us, well, I want to get a, you know, hour-long, 45-minute presentation. I feel that that's wrong, but I'm just trying to do as a starting point. So I put where at least you have, where there's a, you know, do you want the bill or you don't want it, whatever it is, that each side be represented, rather than always having to worry, well, if I don't do a presentation and I don't know about one, you know, that Councilmember Paleka might want to do that's opposing, I better get one in there. Here is that there should be at least equal time to each side for and against, and upon approval of the council chair. So that's leaving it to the chair to really decide, like, I don't think this is a good idea. You know, so it basically gives that overall discretion to the chair. Again, I want to say we can leave it the way right now, where it's really in our own discretion. We move it if there's a presentation. There's not really, you're not having to get advanced approval. Or we can do it where there's sort of make sure there's something on both sides. I think last night gave us an idea. What if it had only been my presentation, not Bill Willich? You know, that it's good having, I feel it's good having, you know, when there is going to be a presentation on a bill, that it should be allowed, that we're sort of hearing the two ends and see where we go. So I'm going to yield right now. I just sort of, I want to get it out. And I think, number one, I want to say I feel that it's important that we just settle our procedural issues and we're not debating them when things are going on. So I want to get some clarity, and that's why I'm doing this, and not necessarily that what position we should take. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Willie. I want to give the floor to Mr. Onishi. Mr. Onishi?
Thank you.
You ready?
Chair. Yes, okay. So at this time, I would like to make a motion to amend Resolution 50-15 with the Conference and Communication number 79.1.
Motion's on the floor. May I have a second? It's been moved by Mr. Onishi and seconded by Ms. Poindexter. Mr. Onishi, you have the floor.
Thank you.
On the
Yeah,
amendment.
at our last meeting, what happened is that my concern was that like in C, that all council and committee meetings shall conclude by 6 p.m. That was not what was in the original rules that we had from last term. And so what I wanted to do was correct that first, to take it out, and that's why this amendment is in there. And then maybe next meeting, Ms. Willie can come in and she can amend our Rule 2 with whatever she wants to put in about the meeting times and how the voting will be. Also, in Resolution 50-15, she had included about the presentation, and that was like in D. So what I'm doing is I'm amending that part of the presentation where it is going to be now C, and would be any request referral of presentations shall be approved in advance by the council. So anyone who wants to do a presentation would need to come propose it to the council, and then the council at the time will decide if we want to do the presentation or not. Then when you come to the council, you would need to request, your request would have to be the proposed date of the presentation, a brief description of the contents of the presentation, the persons or groups that will be providing the presentations. And then so once that is approved, and that would you wouldn't need a super majority, you just would need a majority vote. Then it would be done, the council chair would be the person that would I guess appropriate or would select which committee the presentation would be suited for. Okay, so that way we'll leave that up to the council chair to decide, okay, which committee this presentation should be heard in. And so I'm just asking for you guys' approval, and I think this is better where the council as a whole can make a decision if we want to hear the presentation or we want to defer it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Onishi. Council, Ms. Willie.
I'd just like to ask, can we break these two, the C, eliminating C and the provision in D, and vote on them separately? Deal with them separately? That's first, but let me just make a couple comments first. Let me say, in terms of C, I have no trouble eliminating C, and I have no trouble leaving it eliminated permanently, as is what we had. So I'm fine with that. With respect to the presentations, you know, the one thing this takes out is sort of the assurance that there's going to be an opportunity for different positions to be presented. So if I wanted to go and do a presentation on something that was coming up and looked good, or got it in, or anyone else, then it might be that Ms. Poindexter really disagreed with that, and then she's saying, well, why, has no knowledge, because I can't inform people of what's going on. We don't know what's going on with the other council members. So I just want to make it clear that really the only key difference here is that it doesn't assure that there's an opportunity for the two sides of the issue. I think there's also, I think in some ways, do we really want to have presentations? I just want to, do we want to have presentations? I just want to use last night. And then how, if we do we want it to be that anyone can do one where it's a one-sided position, say on the aquifer one of the presentations where Peter Young came, and there was a lot of anger when you're not having a panel on the other side. Or do we want to assure there is? So I think there are pros and cons to all of that. And again, I'm just going to yield and want to clarify the differences. But I would like to vote separately on these and not as a package. So can I move to bifurcate or whatever the language is? Or
I think maybe before you do that, I'd like to hear from the other council members.
Okay, fine.
Ms. Yoff.
There's definitely pros and cons, especially regarding presentations. But a couple of things, maybe I haven't thought this through as much as you have, but maybe you could answer this question. What if there isn't an opposing presenter that's either willing to come forward or that we would like to hear from? Do we still, I'm not sure how we can deal with that the way it's written now, because it seems like that would be required. And the other thing is, if presentations need to be decided on by the council at a meeting ahead of the time that it gets referred to committee, that would mean that people would then come in and testify as well on those presentations several more times than they do at this time, the way it is. So I guess we have to think that through. I'm not sure how that would work out. If it's very controversial, it might become a very prolonged exercise. So those are the things that occurred to me, but I don't know. I'm willing to keep talking about it.
Thank you, Ms. Yoff. Council members? Mr. Chung?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think both of these, what is this? The original resolution or the original rule proposal by Ms. Willie, as well as the amendment by Mr. Onishi, have merit. And it's really difficult for me to choose one over the other. I'm inclined more to go with Mr. Onishi's right now. But I did want to mention, and I don't know, maybe this is food for thought. I don't know if you guys want to postpone this, because I really believe information is good. I'm kind of surprised that Ms. Willie would actually suggest that perhaps we don't need presentations. But I really think that the more information we get in the way of presentations are good. Now, I've approached this subject with the county clerk as well as the corporation counsel, and what I have mired in my office is a draft of a rule change, and I don't know if it's ever going to see the light of day, and maybe I can get some input from all of you. But it was the formation of a presentations committee, and that committee, the chairperson, he or she would basically be the czar of presentations. Of course, the initial referral would be made from the council chair, okay? But it will either be presented or end in that committee. And I've also thought about the possibility of keeping public testimony to 1 minute at the end of the presentation. And the basis for that is, if we're going to have people presenting and we want to get information, then we want these guys to be able to come to us and not have to wait for a long time before they get to present. I think they should be able to come, present their information at the front end, and then people can comment later on. Maybe, I've discussed this with Corp Counsel, and, she thinks that maybe, limiting it to 1 minute, since in as much as we're trying to get information from presenters, it might be okay. But I just wanted to throw that out as something that, I've been toying with. I don't know what's going to happen, but maybe you guys can think about it.
Thank you, Mr. Chung. Council members, Mrs. David, and then Mr. Coletta.
Yes, thank you, Margaret, and Councilmember Onishi. I think we've kind of experienced what you're talking about in several of our meetings regarding presentations. I kind of like the idea that Councilmember Chung is speaking of. At this point, I'm not really sure whether I'm going, which one works, basically. I think for me, I need to kind of think about more of what Mr. Chung is saying, because I kind of like that process, because it separates it from our business at hand, and we can get more control of our agenda that way. So I'd like some time to think about it, and then also see what Councilmember Chung puts forward, and look at his proposal. I yield.
Thank you. I just want to mention to the council members, I apologize, but I mean, we need to just stick on this amendment right now. I understand that there could be something in the future, and I don't want to go into, possible future legislation that might happen, but I just want to, even though it's still part of what we're talking about right now, so if we can just keep on to this amendment, I'd really appreciate it. Mr. Coletta.
No, I just wanted to reiterate that I do believe we need to consider both sides of the issue when hearing. And like last night, there's an opportunity for them to respond or rebut to the presentation would be helpful. But in this case, regarding the two proposals we have or measures before us,
Mr. Paleka, before you continue that, we need to take a really quick recess. Apologize for cutting you off. We'll come back to you. Okay, council members, real quick recess. Okay, aloha everyone. We are coming out of recess. Apologize for that. Thank you for your patience. And we will continue on with Mr. Paleka. Mr. Paleka on the amendment.
thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I like elements of both proposals, so perhaps we can work on this a little more. I'll just leave it to that and yield to my fellow members.
Thank you, Mr. Paleka. Before I go back to the other council members, any other council member that hasn't spoken yet on this first round, I think we haven't spoken to Mr. Iligan. Sorry, Mr. Iligan, I can't really see you. Oh, if you are okay with...
Thank you,
Would you
Mr.
like to-
Chair, but this time I honestly don't have any comments.
Thank you, Mr. Iligan. Ms. Willie.
Okay, just sort of thinking of the comments that have been said, that we could do this where it said any request for referral of a presentation shall be approved in advance by the council chair. If we're willing to do that, if he had some question, could move it on. But then we wouldn't be coming before anyone. I'm not sure how going, there's the chair, there's the council, there's an ad hoc committee, and just running through, the different, an ad hoc committee to me is like the ad hoc we did last night. I don't like it, where it's 3 or 4 people making the decision, and I don't know that I agree. In some ways, I feel the obligation of the chair is to make sure that there's fairness, and they can say, I think this is a controversial issue. If you're going to do this, I think we ought to open it up to the other side, and we could orchestrate it and take a little less time with the council. Now, if we don't like how it's being handled, we could come back at a later date and change it. But I could work with Mr. Onishi. I think he spells out a little bit more here, but that would be the direction that I would move in. It also eliminates some of the issues that I know Ms. Eoff picked up on, and also my concern is if you're going to say there's a pro and a con, well, who is it that if I'm the pro side, do I get to decide who's doing the con side? And then I want to not get into sunshine law violations. So my suggestion, I think, that right now, is, for the time being, would be that we work on it Fresh and I could work on it, come up with a different edition, but basically, my inclination would go to allowing the chair to facilitate that and not having another hearing, because I can, last night it was hell. I really wanted the public to be able to speak after the presentations, as John knows, and that's something I was thinking I would bring up a new rule, because, in other words, he said you're not following the agenda and those issues, but I think the people should see the presentation, because I didn't know exactly what I was going to vote. I wanted to listen to what everyone had to say. So I would like to move to postpone this to the call of the chair.
Postpone.
Hold on.
Before I get a second on that, Ms. Willie, I just want to hear from Mr. Onishi, since this is his amendment.
Okay.
I'd like to give him an opportunity to respond,
fine.
if that's okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Onishi?
Hearing some of the discussions and the concerns from other council members, I was just thinking, where it says any request for referral of a presentation shall be approved in advance by the council chair. And so the council chair would decide if we hear it or not. And then the council chair would be the person that would, I guess, decide which committee the presentation would be held in. And so that way, we wouldn't hear any testimony like Ms. Yoff had mentioned about. And this way, any presentation wouldn't go to the committee chair, but would go to the council chair. And I think that would be the easiest. Thank you. So
That's what I'm
I
saying.
would like to move this forward, and then we can just amend it, or we can just do verbal amendment to this. I don't know how we can do it, but just adding in chair. Thank you. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Onishi. Ms. Willie?
I think this is substantive enough that even though we would just say eliminate everything other than adding the word chair, I'm not sure that we really should, or we can do that verbally. I think we could do, John, can I ask the clerk? If we did that, we still have to hear it again. It's not the final vote,
That's
right?
to your first question, which I believe is, can this proposed amendment be verbally amended by the council? The answer to that is yes. We do allow verbal amendments as a secondary amendment, provided, of course, that it's clear and everybody understands what the amendment is. The answer to your second question, I believe, is would the council be allowed to act further on this today if amendments are made to this resolution? Am I correct, or did I misread that?
Okay.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, normally we would hold it over unless the council suspended its rules and wanted to act on it today. Because the amendments are substantial, it would be held over to the next agenda unless council desired to move on by suspension.
So then would I be making a motion to amend this Mr. Onishi's amendment, and by adding the word chair at the end of the first sentence of where it says C here, and I'm looking at mine, I think, no? So that it would just read, any request for referral of a presentation shall be approved in advance by the council chair, period. And that's it.
You got that?
If I may, in reading the entire amendment, if we're going to keep the material below that specifies request for presentation time, thing of that nature, and then if we're not, then that would probably be the first motion to make, would be to remove that material in its entirety. I would state that as moving the final two sentences that are proposed. That would be the first motion to me to amend this resolution. The second one would be to add the words chairperson after the word council.
Okay. So I move to amend C so that it eliminates all of this except for the first sentence. It would, only the first sentence.
Mr. Clerk, I don't want to confuse not only ourselves, but the public that are listening, what we're doing. They don't have, they might not have a lot of this in front of them.
Should I read it?
I'm just trying to feel the more appropriate, Mr. Chung, if you have, real quickly. Sorry.
I'm just wondering if we could table this for a little while, let's gather our thoughts, and we got some members of the administration, and I'm sure their matters aren't gonna take too long, so if we could do that, would that be okay?
Yeah. Mr. Chung, you're absolutely correct. I think, Ms. Willie, I think if it's appropriate in the next 15 minutes, I mean, we can have somebody, one of the staff help you out of how to formulate a proper, one of these, or Mr. Onishi in the Hilo side. Mr. Onishi, is it okay if we table this right now so you can work on that amendment?
I don't see that.
But my amendment would just be adding in chair after council, that
That's-
first sentence, and that's it, and keeping everything else, because then that way, it kind of defines as a council member, when you wanna, request for a presentation, it tells all the description what you need to do. And you need to follow these rules on having like proposed date, a brief description of the contents of the presentation, the persons or groups that will be providing presentations. And then the chair will decide which committee will be heard in. Simple.
Mr. Attorney,
Mr. Chung,
if I could
yes.
address, Trish, I don't know if you heard, but I just asked the chair if we could perhaps table this matter, so, you know, we could all gather our thoughts, because we have Dwayne and Bobby Command over here, and, you know, maybe if we take the other matters up, get them out of here, and then go back, because for you and Margaret, it seems to be really easy to digest, because you guys were the ones to draft this. Like, we just got your amendment today. It's kind of difficult for even me to really digest, even if, as simple as it sounds to you. I'm getting a difficult time to, you know, see how all of this plays in with one another. So could we just maybe table it? Would that be okay? Just table it for like 15 minutes? I think that's all it's gonna take to get Mr. Kanua and Mr. Command out of here,
Mr. Chung, was that a motion?
if that's okay with him.
No, Mr. Chair, no, I'm okay with the team, but I'm not gonna do any other amendments. All I'm going to do is, if there's an amendment, I'm gonna just put in chair and that's it. I'm gonna keep everything else.
Okay.
I think Ms. Willie wants to eliminate everything else, so.
Thank you, Mr.
I'll make a
Onishi.
motion to table this to the end of the day.
Thank you, Mr. Onishi. May I have a second? It's been moved to table this amendment to the end of the day agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you, council. Okay, Mr. Clerk. Okay, council members, we have a motion, resolution on the table, or amendment on the table.
Just procedure, you just need a motion to remove it from the table.
Yeah, may I have a motion to remove from the table resolution 50-15? It's been moved by Ms. Poindexter, seconded by Ms. Eoff. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, I'm gonna give the floor to Ms. Willie.
Okay, I think going along with what Fresh was suggesting, I'm going to read what it would be. It would be, any request for referral of a presentation shall be approved in advance by the council chair, underline the word chair, and then keep going. The request shall include the proposed date for the presentation, a brief description of the content of the presentation, and the person or persons or group that will be providing the presentation. Any request so approved shall be referred by the council chairperson to the appropriate committee to be heard on the date as proposed in the requesting communication, unless the council chair, adding the word chair in again, determines the presentation will occur on a date other than that which has been proposed. Let's see if Fresh is okay.
I don't want to, I hate to just make a
Point of
small
order.
consideration. Could we just say chairperson,
Yeah.
just to be consistent throughout the
That's fine.
document? So what you just said, by adding chairperson in the place of chair, I think everybody's on board with that,
Yes.
as far as understanding at least, maybe not appreciating, but understanding.
Okay,
Yes.
council members, did you all get the language proposed? So, the motion on the floor, do we have? Mr.
I understand that Ms. Woolley made this motion to amend this amendment. All we need is a second now.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Willie and seconded by Ms. Eoff to amend what communication? 79.1 with the contents of what just came out of Ms. Willie's mouth. All in favor, or any discussion on the proposed amendments? Hearing or seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's 9 ayes, motion passes on the amendment to the amendment. Okay, we are currently now on the amendment as amended. Any discussion on the amendment as amended? Hearing or seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's 9 ayes, motion passes. Okay, now we are on the resolution 50 as amended. We might have to, before we vote on this, Mr. Clerk, as I'm am not correct in saying that we're gonna have to vote on the rules, or what is it, suspend the rules so that we can vote on this today.
If the council wishes to continue with this resolution, yes.
Okay. Any discussion on resolution 50-15 as amended?
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Well, sorry. May I have a motion to suspend the rules so that we can discuss this resolution as amended today?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Paleka and seconded by Ms. Willie. Any discussion? Oh, sorry. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. The motion has been approved, and we have suspended the rules so that we can discuss this item today. Any discussion? Ms. Willie?
Okay, I want to make it clear to the public what we're doing, what's the bottom line here, and that is, this communication is 79.1 from Mr. Onishi, and it would eliminate the section C as it currently in, it would take out all council and committee meetings shall conclude by 6 p.m. absent a majority vote of all council members in attendance. The meeting shall be continued to a further date as soon as is practical. That's eliminated. That would be deleted. So I just want to make it clear. So there would be no required vote. And then second on C, it would again basically, I'm just first sentence, any request for a presentation would have to be approved by the council chairperson, and it would be handled administratively through the council chair. So just for anyone listening, that's where we're ending up. Thank you.
Ms. Yoff?
And just to be really clear, we will have no rule that has any end time to meetings, correct?
Yeah, Ms. Willie explained that in her first, when she first discuss this item. Okay, any other discussion, council members? In hearing or seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's 9 ayes, motion passes. Before I have a motion to adjourn, Mr. Clerk, is there any other items on the agenda that we have?